Welcome back to Modern Mommies here on Tweet Talk TV, coming at you live every Wednesday at 6 p.m. Central. I am Alexis Ann Moore, mother of a beautiful 3-year-old little boy and the creator of the Superhero Children program. It's a self-empowerment program for kids. And with me, I've got my lovely co-host, Jennifer Perry, who has been working. Hi, Jennifer. Jennifer's been working in the school system, in the public school system for 17 years and is now a counselor, an elementary school counselor in the Dallas school system, and the mother of 3 beautiful children. Hi, Jennifer. How are you?
I'm good. How are you doing?
Doing well. So good to see you again.
You too. I'm ready to talk good stuff today.
And with us, we've got Christopher Witecki, the father of Soul Garden. And one of you're not our token daddy today. We have 2 of you.
That's right, 2 token daddies.
But yes, we've got Christopher Witecki with us today, sharing his opinion on today's topic. Oh, I got a little ahead of myself. And we've got Kevin. How are you doing, Kevin?
Great. Thank you for having me.
Great, Kevin. It's wonderful to have you with us. Here to talk about hyperactive children, how to deal with ADHD, and how to parent the hyperactive child. That's what we're discussing today, and as it turns out, it's a very lively discussion. So I want to find out, with all of your background, Jennifer, what are your experiences with the hyperactive child?
We see a lot of that in schools today. It seems like the number tends to be growing. I've been doing it for a long time, but really I don't know if it's the numbers growing or maybe they're being diagnosed more as hyperactive or ADHD. But you see a lot of that in schools today. It's definitely a growing issue.
Mm-hmm. Well, all right. Well, I'm really looking forward to getting a little bit more into that with you and also hearing your experience as a father, Kevin. Before we get any further into that, what in the world is going on? What's going on? Hey, Jennifer, what's going on today?
Well, I have a story for you, kind of a question. You know, how young is too young to let your kiddo play outside? There was a woman in Austin who was letting her 6-year-old son play about 150 yards away at the park. So she was kind of watching him at her house, but he was at the park. So a football field and a half away. He was 6 years old, and as she was going through the mail, the neighbor went and got the kid from the park because she noticed that he was alone and took him home. And she said, you know, I noticed your kid was kind of alone at the park, so I brought him back to you. And about 5 minutes later, the police showed up. And about 5 minutes after that, CPS showed up because the neighbor had called the police and CPS because the mother was letting the 6-year-old play alone at the park. And so, you know, it's just one of those questions, at what age is it okay to let your kids play outside?
Wow.
Yeah.
I remember as a kid running to my friend's house, and I mean, they lived across the street, but I mean, I remember having adventures.
My mom didn't even know if I was selling drugs. She had no clue. Once we went out that screen door, she had no forgiving clue where we were. The only rule was, once it got dark, get your ass inside.
Yes, that's how it used to be
when the
when you were a
street lights
kid.
came on.
When the street lights came on.
That was the rule. You know, me personally, I won't let my daughter get 25 yards away until she's 18, but, you know. That's another story.
Yeah.
But yeah, the street lights came on, you were home, and you could go blocks and blocks away.
Well, yeah, that's true, Kevin. Actually, the modern parenting seems to be you don't let your eye off your kid for one tiny nanosecond.
That's so true, and I think it's.
Yeah.
I think it's maybe because parents are so scared nowadays. Anything could happen at any second, and so they're scared to even let their eyes off of their kids.
You know, that was going on when we were kids too, though. It was. I'm feeling like, you know, we had a topic here before where we were talking about parents leaving children in cars, which I don't condone at all. But I keep seeing it, and it is again in the news today in Texas, and it's like every week you see that, and it's all these people like standing up against it, and I'm wondering if it's just people are really complaining a lot more than they used to about what other parents are doing.
Yeah, why can't they be tattletaling on like, people, like corporate industries stealing tax dollars, or tattletaling on something interesting, but tattletaling on each other. Like, I don't know what the tattletaling is about the kid in the park alone, but that's just, you could have just watched the girl instead of telling on her mom.
Right.
Yeah, you could have just looked over her if you're a concerned citizen. So let me ask you this, concerned citizen: did you leave that kid alone and go complain? That's a concerned citizen for you. Look at that! I'm going to abandon this child and complain about how it's abandoned. Oh my God, that's hyper. But like in modern time, we never like, to the point with my son. We never had our eye off of him, and we never even really put him in very much daycare or whatever. We just didn't. I don't know. There's just this concern. Growing up in my generation, we had total freedom, but we always heard of horrible things happening to other kids.
Mm-hmm.
So
but also the one thing is all the neighbors knew each other. Everybody knew everybody. Everybody knew whose kid was there. You could be 6 or 7 blocks away, and it's like, oh, that's Billy. He's Dale's son, and they play on this league. But that's not the case these days. So.
Yeah, actually, it was more like that's alcoholic Dale's son. See the bruises? But you knew. You knew it was Dale's son. Yeah, you can't leave him away for a minute. But Kevin, when you go to a park, I was just with Kevin and his daughter at the pool a couple days ago, and Kevin literally, not 1 second do you keep an eye off of her. Like, you're on her the entire time, even at a little closed pool with a gate and key access.
Yeah, true.
No, but that's what your senses are, though, I guess, to protect her.
Yeah.
I'm not criticizing you.
How old is your daughter, Kevin?
She's 4.
4.
And she's definitely hyperactive.
Okay.
Her mother had a child that was very mellow, so when she was about 3 years old, she asked me, do you think Madison is hyperactive? And it was, well, I know she is. So definitely the energy there is extreme. Chris can attest to that.
Yeah, there's a lot to keep up. There's a lot to keep up on with her too. That's also, you have an eye on her because she's constantly going somewhere into something. My son was very. I was so blessed with this. I don't have anything to say on hyperactive children, except that I think I was hyperactive. But my son was such a little Zen Buddha blessing. He actually is more peaceful than me. Teaches me how to calm down.
I'm going to get into it a little bit later about the comments that we got from our Facebook friends, but the adults, that's who I heard a lot from, are adults that have ADHD, and they all said that it was once they found their passion and were able to put all their focus into something that made them really excited, they could accomplish more than anybody. Just by putting all that energy into the one thing they're really into, and I can see that with you, Christopher. I can see that.
Oh,
you worked your butt off.
Oh yeah, I was a hyperactive kid, but we had our, back in first of all, my parents' day, my parents' generation, when it came to hyperactive kids, you just threw them outside. That was the solution. Get your ass outside, go outside and play, and that was pretty much it. And in school, I don't know. I didn't have a problem in school so much, sitting down and things like that. But I think, I don't know, I have to say, we'll go into a topic, but you introduce your hyperactive topic, but I think a lot of kids get labeled hyperactive, and then they get in front of the teacher, and the teacher is a numb lame brain. I'm like, how could you ever handle any dynamic child? No offense to teachers, Jennifer, or whatever, but a lot of times there's teachers. I find a lot of times teachers have a hard time just dealing with just their own emotions and bouncing off these high energy kids. And I don't know if the kids necessarily, lighting fires or anything.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm.
Well, okay, so let's just announce it and really go in deep. We are discussing parenting the hyperactive child, and I have written a very in-depth blog on this on the Modern Mommies blog page on soulgarden.tv. So if you want to read a little bit deeper into it and maybe find, I've got links there for supporting parents, go there and find that, definitely. I definitely want to hear your experience, Jennifer, in the school system, because I feel, and it's been my observation, that that is the one place that the hyperactive child really has a hard time fitting in.
Absolutely. And part of it is like what Christopher said, the teacher fit and the teacher's personality. And then the other part of it is that many times with hyperactive kids, they are so impulsive. And so they're the kids that they don't think before they do things. So they'll grab people's crayons or they'll hit somebody and they'll just react to lots of things. And that causes them to kind of socially isolate themselves. And so it's kids kind of get it from both sides. They struggle with the teacher interaction, they struggle with being able to finish the work, and then they struggle with that social aspect too.
I read a really interesting article while I was putting my blog together about, and a link to it is on the blog. I don't remember it offhand now, but it was about the correlation between screens, like gaming and TV screens, and ADHD. And what was really interesting in this article is that is the guy was saying you can't really tell what the causal whatever, you can't tell which is causing which, because it might be that the screens are causing the child to expect instant reward over and over again by gaining points or going up another level. With all of this constant stimulation, they're just finding life boring, like reality's boring. Or is it because the child is having such a hard time fitting in socially because they are processing things differently and they just behave differently, that they are going to the games for comfort and to the TV for comfort, because that's like the world where they get it.
That would make sense. Yeah, you know, I've seen studies that if you put a child in front of like TV or the computer screens when they're young, when their brains are still forming passageways to develop, that causes the brain to develop different passageways. And so that is hard to say, you know, which came first, the chicken or the egg? Was it that they were watching TV and doing computers too early, or was it that their brains were already made that way, and so that constant action is what they needed for stimulation? It's kind of hard to tell which was first.
The brains, that was another really neat article I read on it, was that studies done with a high-resolution MRI shows that not only are, I love science, but I get my words confused, I have mom brain, but prefrontal lobe and it was a little bit smaller, and then more gray matter in another part in the back of the brain. So the brain actually is shaped differently, and not only is it shaped differently, but the brain function happens in different places. Like, for example, memory function happens more in the visual areas. So the complete brain mechanism is totally wired and shaped different. So these are, I am of the opinion now, after going deep with my thoughts on this and doing a lot of research, that this might be an evolutionary kind of thing, and maybe we should like step back and see what these kids can do in their own natural environment. You know.
I was just gonna say that, like, I think watching my son grow up, he's a very natural, peaceful spirit, but among his generation, there were when I was raising my son, that's when all the parents started getting kids on the ADD medication. Like, I'm the generation of parents that decided or not decided, I think, made those first decisions. And when I got psychically in front of the hyperactive kids, I recognized myself, first of all, that these are high vibration spirits caught in a low vibration world. And they need a lot of, think of it like a hummingbird, they need to flap their wings really fast, and that almost is how they need to express themselves. So It's interesting to see. I think at the end of the day, it is evolutionary. Alexis, is what I'm saying. I think that we're bringing in higher vibration kids that need higher vibration response.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And so on WebMD, well, actually, I'm going to look and give you the definition of ADHD. It wasn't really defined. The Mayo Clinic list of diseases and conditions calls it a combination of problems such as difficulty sustaining attention, hyperactivity, and impulsive behavior. And WebMD says that it is one of the most common childhood behavior disorders in the United States, which is making me feel like, and I took the stance in my blog, I got pretty angry about it, because I do. I'm passionate, I try to be a grown-up voice for the kids, but if so many children are experiencing this, then why don't we quit calling them like a problem or their condition and start addressing them as a new wave of society or something? And where do we fit in with this now? Okay, so let me give a really bizarre example out of my interesting mind. If we all ate a hamburger and a large percentage of the people got sick, would we say what's wrong with those people and medicate them, or would we go to the hamburger and figure out what the hell's wrong with the hamburger? Like,
What would our society do? We would blame the people and give them a new pill.
yeah, and then we would smooth it over on the news.
Well, yeah, it's like, oh, you have stomach problems. You have chronic stomach problems. No, you eat McDonald's every day of the week.
Well, Alexis, on my personal note, back in the late 80s, actually when I was in junior high is when ADD was, kind of coming out in a big way. And by about 92 is when they actually switched over from not just being ADD, but ADHD. So I was actually diagnosed when I was a freshman with ADHD. So back then it was, it was hyperactivity, but they didn't really know what was going on, right? It was you were so hyper that you had ADD, right? You could not pay attention. You were too hyper. So I remember in my freshman year, they said, one teacher said, hey, allow me a month, with Kevin, and let's see if we can, calm him down and, be able to sit through a class, because I could not go 45 minutes. It was impossible. And after a month, it was like, what they were doing in our school system was if you had ADD or ADHD, they were putting you in continuation school. And what they noticed, or at least for me, was when the tests were not timed and you were in a classroom with nobody, just a test, kids were passing it with flying colors. So there was something there. And for Ritalin, remember when Ritalin came out, it was kind of comical now, because one day, the teacher is peeling you off the ceiling, and the next day, you're nodding off. And they couldn't get the doses right, and so for Ritalin, it would be for an average person maybe taking Benadryl, taking 2 pills of Benadryl, right? It's going to knock you out. So I don't know how it is nowadays, but for me personally, just through nutrition and the way I was eating, obviously I completely weaned off of that medication and kind of grew out of that. So, but I definitely remember back then, the school, they were just pushing Ritalin hard on kids. But one thing also I want to mention, that even though they diagnosed as ADHD, when you were really involved in something or something you liked, you did it 110%. And that's with my daughter. Even though she's hyperactive, when she does something she likes, her focus is like laser focused. But when she's doing something she doesn't, she's all over the place. So.
And this is what I'm thinking when I say evolutionary, is that from everything I've heard from the adults being able to really articulate their experience, these could be the next innovators, the next people. If we were to give them a structure where they were allowed to figure out their focus and their passion and just let them run with it and learn everything and figure everything out focused on that one thing that makes them wild, crazy, happy, passionate, then these kids could, who knows what kind of innovation they could do. I mean, these could be the next mom brain, the Apple, you know? How did I forget his name?
Steve Jobs.
You know what I'm saying? There we go, Jobs. These could be the next Jobs.
That's like
serious.
the opposite of HDD. That's our generation. Like, what is it?
Yeah, right? I've been slept in 3 years. I don't know. I look all right.
It's possible. You know, I think, well, one thing's for certain. I think that the kids need the stimulation. A few things. Like, for me, I was definitely a hyperactive kid in the sense that I had a lot going on. But for some reason, I just learned to escape in my own head. So in my head, I was just in 1,000 places at once and also paying attention. And I just kind of always kind of lived that way. I definitely tell you this, like, put me in a job like CVS where I'm just like, ding, ding, I want to kill myself. I want to bust out of my, it is just horrible to be living in that kind of simple world. So I think to some degree, we expect human beings to be these like simple creatures that we're not anymore. And to some degree, I think what Kevin brought up with nutrition is kind of also a good point. As I became an adult and I changed my diet, my nervousness went down considerably. There is so much crap in food and whatnot that I think we take for granted.
That is true.
Yeah, that's in a big way.
With the kids and the fruit juices and the corn syrup and it's like we're amping these kids up.
The dyes, all of that extra stuff that you're putting into foods. It's not helping.
But my son has grown up on, like, he won't focus, actually. That's my issue with him. He's in 1,000 places. But these kids are growing up with software. Like, they're growing up with a digital world that's meeting them in all these places, though. That's meeting them in all these places. And Alexis, you brought up on Circle of Wisdom how the kids, like, all use software to kind of unite. I have a feeling that when these kids grow up, because they grew up with all this, all these answers and all these directions to all their mental questions, it's going to gel into something deeper or wanting something more profound, I believe. It's leading to something profound, so maybe it is leading to brilliant children.
That's my intuitive feeling, that these kids are, I mean, their brains are shaped differently and they function in different areas. That's really interesting to me. I don't think... I also have, like, one of my basic life philosophies is that each of us is created perfectly in every detail just the way we are. Just like every other thing in nature, in the cosmos, in the universe, and everything, it all works like with mathematical precision. There is nothing in nature that's wrong. And you might think something's ugly, but if you step back and look at it, you see how it completes the circle in some way. So the only human beings are the only ones I see that don't follow this protocol and that are actually trying to change themselves all the time and very rarely play out their natural role in the world to do their part to make the world a better place. All the other creatures in the ecosystem do their part, but we think, oh, I'm not actually good enough the way I was created. I have to do it this way, and everybody's just a wreck. Like, the human beings are a destroyed ecosystem right now. So treating these children like there's something wrong with them is, to me, missing something that could be incredibly profound.
Is that what you tell yourself when your son throws green paint at your white dress? This is just a moment of profound. It's evolution in the works.
It is a gift of nature.
Is that what you tell yourself? Because on the flip side of it, I have to say I've witnessed Kevin's kid, and Kevin, I think it's just your karma from the stories I hear of you as a child. But your child is constant.
100%.
Constant. She's like on-off switch Frankenstein. She's like, what? And then all of a sudden she's just asleep.
No, it's go. I mean, there is no quiet as dad. I remember last week she says, I want to see a movie. I want to see it. She said that for 30 minutes, fell asleep, and then woke up at 3 a.m. saying it again. Just got right up. I want a movie, and then went back. I mean, it's unbelievable. So, but yes, you're right, Chris. It is karma. So thank you very much.
All I can say is my son was so calm. No, I'm kidding. I was a pretty chill kid. I think you get whatever you attract. But But what is the answer to that? I mean, for these kids, I mean, I think
Okay.
I think I said it very smugly to Kevin, and I said it smugly to every hyperactive child. You know, Benadryl will knock them out.
It does. Well, Ritalin will knock you out.
Yeah, but Ritalin isn't over the counter yet.
Well, I have heard
But
from. Go ahead, Kevin.
I had a question for Alexis. My question is this. Obviously, Madison is 4 years old, and the one thing I do notice is that she cannot make eye contact for more than probably 30 seconds. If I tell her, look at me, I need to talk to you, it's literally, 15 seconds, 30 seconds, has to look away. Has to look away. So I don't know if that is just the hyperactivity in her, constantly wanting to do something else, change, I have a question about that. So is it just because she's 4 years old and all these 4-year-olds just cannot pay attention, or is it due to the hyperactivity?
It could be. I mean, it could be that she's 4. It could be that it's awkward. It could be, if anyone tells me look in my eyes, like, I'll probably start laughing and look away in less than 15 seconds. Like, but I might have, I might be hyperactive too. I'm questioning now.
I think it's Kevin. I think it's Kevin's breath.
Kevin,
Thank you.
I'm just kidding. I can't look you for more than 2 seconds, dude. No, I'm just kidding. But you're right, though. Actually, I had that problem with my son Miles, who's a Gemini. And when he was a kid, I had a real hard time getting his whole focus. And I'd be like, Miles, Miles. And he'd be like, and he would look away, like, Miles, give me your full attention, But I saw, growing up, I guess because he's a Gemini, I was his prejudice. I was always like, no, make it the other side of your brain pay attention. I want both sides of your brain. Both.
Oh, my goodness.
Right here. He's like, stop it!
Well, I have a list of ways to help with this. But before I go into them, which I definitely want to make sure we have time to do that, I want to hear from you, Jennifer, about your experience actually in the school system. Like, how do you communicate or how do you deal with a hyperactive child that's got to be, corralled?
I kind of feel the same philosophy that you do. I don't think that there's anything wrong with these kids. I think it's the system and the box we're trying to fit them in. And so a lot of it, though, is educating teachers on things that they can do and parents on things that they can do and strategies they can use to help their kids. And then the other part of it is directly teaching the kids, because you can teach kids, even if it's really hard to stay still or pay attention, there are things you can do and strategies that you can use to teach the kids to do that. And as adults, we kind of learned that ourselves. I was really hyper and busy when I was a kid, and so now I'm the kid that whenever I'm learning or thinking, I'm always doodling. Or there are kids who are shaking their legs all the time, or adults who chew gum constantly. And so there are strategies, there are things that you can do and teach these kids that will help them focus. And so I really try to, oh, sorry, go ahead.
I totally interrupted you. I saw a rubber fidget ring online. It's like a fidget ring for ADHD.
Yes. Yeah, you would not believe. We have pencil toppers that you can play with this. I have stress balls that we make out of balloons and flowers that the kids can mess with. Rubber bands. We have a couple of our classrooms have those big like medicine balls that the kids sit on. And so they sit on them, and so they can move and wobble and do all of that. Really, studies show that kids learn best when they're able to move. And so if you can teach parents and teachers that you need to allow the kid to move, it really does help everybody.
Jennifer, what's your observation of the parents that are with the kids that are pre-medicated and post-medicated? Do you see that before and after picture, and does it work?
Yeah. I read Alexis's blog, and she hit it on the nose when she said that is such a personal decision. Because I'm going to be honest, I've seen children that when you have a kid who is constantly on the go or constantly getting reprimanded, eventually it starts to wear on their self-esteem. Mm-hmm. And I have seen kids that are so beaten down by the time they get to high school, if they don't get some sort of help, whether it's medication or whether it's a natural way or counseling, if they don't get something, those are the kids that end up self-medicating. I had one student who ended up hanging himself as a 10th grader just because, I mean, you have to think about it. These kids, it didn't just start this way. So since they've been in kindergarten, they've heard, Johnny, sit down. Johnny, stop touching him. Johnny, quit doing that. Johnny, don't do that. And by the time you get to be 15 or 16, you feel about that big. And so they need something, whether it's medication, because I've had some parents who are absolutely against medication, and I teach them about the herbal route to go. There are some parents who are like, just give me something, and then those doctors can help them with that way. It really is such...
And are the kids, and that's what I'm saying, from your, without specific names, I mean, have you seen the medicine actually help, or does it?
Yes. It allows the kid the ability to actually sit down and maintain their focus for longer periods of time. It allows them to actually be able to do their homework. And over the long run, I had a parent just this year, a couple of weeks ago, she took her son off of medication because he wasn't eating, because there are side effects, so you have to find the right medicine. And within the 3rd week of school, he was begging her to put him back on his medicine. Because you have to kind of think about it. Your mind is constantly racing. So it's like equivalent to us having an itch, and you want to itch it so bad, but you're not supposed to itch it. So eventually, you feel like you just want to explode. And so I've had kids who it's helped. It's helped in so many ways.
I will share that as an adult, I had an anxiety issue, and I went to the doctor, and the doctor said, you know, for anxiety, we prescribe ADHD medicine. That's something we're doing now. And I was like, really? So I ended up getting on Adderall, which is very intense, and I did for like 6 weeks, and I have to say that as soon as I went on it, I was completely calm for the first time in my entire life. But then after, I did notice that I had to take more to stay calm, like the dosage was weird, and I really realized that I was capable of that calm, and then once I came off the medication, I could actually find that calm without it.
Yes, yes, that's the key to it. It's not stay on medicine for a lifetime. It's stay on it long enough so you can learn how that feels in your body, and then be able to find ways to bring that peace and calmness to you.
So
well, that's what they claim. Good.
I feel like you know, I teach, and I honestly, the beginning of every semester, I used to dread the first day and hope that I didn't have a hyperactive child in my group, because I teach self-awareness. We do a lot of meditation, and it's a small group, and it's so hard to focus and get through it when someone's constantly interrupting. So that was definitely an experience I've had as a teacher. Fortunately, with what I teach, I've been able to watch over 2 semesters of the superhero training 1 and 2. I have students learning how to take responsibility for their own energy. And by that I mean these kids have such a negative self-image because, like you said, they're constantly getting in trouble all the time, and they start to think of themselves as the naughty kid. So they start behaving like that. That's just, they're always getting in trouble. So so then teaching them that, hey, we accept you. You're part of our tribe. You're totally stressing us out, man. So do you want to stress us out? Do you want everyone in the room to be exhausted by your presence, or do you want everyone in the room to be so happy and open and sharing all together? Because that's what we do in the class. So so by calmly looking at my students and saying, okay, take a deep breath, focus yourself, and try again. And it takes, for those particular students, it's a 1-week class, 1 hour a week, but it takes the full 2 semesters. By the end, they have like this pride. They are my star children of the class. They have this pride because they know that they are in control of themselves, and nobody has ever given them that key before. To know that they can, oh, that's what it feels like right before I freak out and get in trouble. Let me breathe and then think about where I want to send that energy. What do I want to do with this energy instead of just exploding on everybody? It takes a lot, though, and it takes a very conscious adult to guide that. So I want to, before we run out of time, because talking about it is really great because we don't get to talk about this a lot, but I really want to share some ways to help. On the blog, I listed some websites where there are nutrition. There's dietary things that you can do, looking into different foods that boost dopamine. Dopamine is very important. With limited dopamine, you start to have depression. So, and ADHD, that's one mark of it, is less dopamine in the body. So getting foods like that in your body, working on a sleep schedule, so that they have their circuitry, they're not sleep deprived. Definitely don't feed them sugar. But some of the things that I've heard, not just from reading articles online, but from people that have experienced it themselves. I had one person told me today that their grandfather, true story, had 2 boys that were hyperactive, 2 grandsons, and so he would have them ride bikes for an hour a day. And they mellowed out.
Yes.
They totally mellowed out. When the weather got bad and they quit riding their bikes for a while in the winter, they went straight back to their old way of being. And we know that exercise is calming and serotonin and all this stuff. So I think also that would be a great way for parents to bond with their children and with each other. 1 hour family bike ride every night. I mean, it might be hard to set aside the time, but it's way harder to try to find peace in a hyperactive
We
room.
can't even eat the same table in my house.
Right. Well,
Actually, I have to say,
Well,
what if you're... Go ahead, Kevin. Go ahead, Kevin.
Oh, I was going to say, Alexis, one thing I did, and I don't know if kids are able to do this, but in my late 20s, instead of them calling it, hyperactivity, but more kind of a mania, I felt a little mania coming on, is I actually went through a Chinese medicine for acupuncture. And I actually did acupuncture for 12 weeks, and what I noticed was not only did I start to kind of come down, mellow out, but my focus, right, if you would call it the ADD, a lot more just focus, clear, wasn't all over the place. The only thing is obviously the cost. It's not covered by insurance. Not that insurance is good, but I did notice that acupuncture did help in a big way.
well,
How much of it is it that we're dopamine junkies? I mean, I think that we are. I don't know what releases dopamine in children's brain. I know it releases it in adults' brains, but what releases it in children's brains? I mean, I think a lot of it is that we kind of get addicted to that rush.
Well, that's what the article about the ADHD and screens and gaming was saying. The correlation between those two is it was saying that they're getting dopamine constantly by playing those games and getting points and moving up to the next level, and that's what kind of the problem is in that situation.
You can't even tell that they're alive. They're just like, this dopamine, it's happening very private. It's not the kind of dopamine that I had as a kid.
Right. Riding bikes, I think.
We rode a lot of bikes as a kid, going back to the original topic, but we had the freedom to ride all over the neighborhood until dark.
Right. Somebody didn't call CPS on you.
Yeah.
So I'm going to put it out there, and I put it out there very strongly on my blog. Parents in the moment, I'm not at all belittling your experience in dealing with a child that has so much energy. I definitely know that there are things that need to be done immediately because we are in the school system and all of that. But in the long run and in a lovely world in my head, there's something called unschooling. And it's something that parents do in place of homeschooling. But there's also a place here in Houston called the Real School. It's an actual school you go to, and there's no structure. The only requirement is that the kids can take themselves potty and feed themselves because the kids are very independent there. And they just have a lot of intelligent people volunteering. And whatever the kids are into, they just go full force into learning that. And it's kind of like child-based. And I think that might not be good for everybody, but if your child really has a brain difference, where that's how they process, then it might really be a great thing to do for a hyperactive kid, because, you know, everybody that I've talked to says that when they find something they're passionate about, they can focus on it and really get it done. And also the comments I got on Facebook said that it wasn't until they got off, these were just the people that said it, but it wasn't until they got off the medication when they were adults and had the freedom to expand outside of the system to focus on their things, that's when their life took off. That's when they quit being depressed. So
or they discovered marijuana and psychedelics. Different time they busted out of their thinking. Yeah. Well, you know what's interesting is, like, I ran into a college kid not too long ago who was, who told me that she gets back on her ADHD medication whenever she has to study. So, like, it turned, as growing up, she had it, she was on it her whole childhood or whatever. Then at some point, like, it's so common, she just got to the point where her parents trusted her to take it when she needed it. And by the time she got into college, she was like, oh, yeah, I can't even pass the test unless I, you know, and she'll spend the whole night up and do it. And so at that point, it was clinical, I need, Popeye needs a spinach.
Yeah. The idea of constant medication, too, angers my whole evolution, you know, the humans being as they are kind of thing, too, because you're basically just muting constantly that individual that could be the next Einstein. I mean, seriously. That's just...
That's true. Actually, it could be. I mean, Einstein said, you know, but Einstein sat with ADHD and thought about the concepts of relativity. Kids these days do not stare out the window thinking about quantum physics or mechanics. They're thinking about
setting the cat on fire.
Oh, well,
because they're so impulsive.
Are you kidding? They've already done it in you know, in video games 1,000 times. That's boring. In fact, I can't remember the name of the game where all you do is hijack cars. But my son, he's
Grand Theft Auto.
Yeah, my son is the most peaceful kid, but I see him in Grand Theft Auto. I'm like, he's like a rapist. He's a total tirade. He's mean, and there's something weird going on there.
And all the parents, if your kid does have ADD, be careful when they get their driver's license.
Ooh.
That's a biggie.
Yeah.
Because being impulsive, I remember I had 6 speeding tickets in 5 months. Not good.
Wow. Yeah, impulsivity is the one thing about this situation that is like truly concerning for me, because that requires, if you're not going to medicate and if you're going to go a natural way of guiding the child, you're going to have to really put a lot of time and patience into correcting them every time and saying, stop, take a deep breath, calm yourself, and make the choice you really want to make, because you don't want to hurt people. You don't want to disrupt the room. That's not who you really want to be. So take a deep breath and choose. I mean, it takes 2 semesters of me constantly doing it for my students, but it works. I mean, it actually works in my class.
It honestly can be taught. They can be taught to feel where it is in their body and just freeze and breathe. We teach it to kids all the time because there are so many parents who don't want to use medication or something like that. It's just the fact that you have to do something. You have to help them and teach them somehow to work through that impulsivity.
How much of it is it, though, I can't help but think, like, going back to tribal times and talking to Master One Feather in the last show, it's like, in the tribal times, did they have kids with ADHD? I don't think so. Part of it is that we're making kids sit down all day long in a position that's not good for your back, absorbing math and science so that you can become little math factory workers. Like, to some degree, we are trying to push human beings into something they're not.
Absolutely. And we've taken away the exercise, you know, because back in the tribal days, they were running and chasing buffaloes all day. They were doing stuff that really mattered instead of sitting there and listening to somebody talk. And we also weren't pumping them with all the chemicals and dyes and sugars and all that extra processed crap.
And in the tribal days, you didn't have to go to school for years and years and years and sit there all day long to learn calculus for some job you weren't going to have. If you really liked boats, you knew it because you saw your uncle making boats, and you'd hang out with him all day because that's what you really liked. And before you knew it, you were a boat expert, and if anyone needed a boat, they'd come to you. you know. So we learned accidentally, which is the whole premise of unschooling, which is plug back to that one. I really.
You're so right.
Really,
Well,
That's my soapbox. We teach kids wrong. We're not teaching them the right way in formal education. But I'll jump off that soapbox really fast.
well, and if we're seeing that there's a majority of children having this, like of an actual population of it, then we should start, you know, creating space for them.
Yes.
One last thing I'm going to say about unschooling is it's something that I've been leaning towards for my son, and I don't know if there are other schools out there. I know it's usually an individual thing at home, which would scare the crap out of me. I don't want to be at home teaching my son all day. We love each other, but we don't need to be around each other 24/7. But I know that you can start a community of other mommies. So if it's something that you're interested in looking into, look around to see if you can find other mommies that have their own skill sets or their own education background that could be helpful, and you could start your own. You could start your own. We don't have to stay in the system, everybody. It's totally easy to get out of it. You just do it. There you go.
Absolutely. Well said.
All right. So on that note, who do we have for our hot daddy of the week, Jennifer?
All right. Can y'all see that screen share? Let me screen share them again.
I can't wait.
Every week we have our hot daddy of the week, honoring daddies who are, we find you hot.
Yes.
We find it very hot when you're a good daddy. So if we catch you doing it, if we catch you being a great daddy, we're going to catch you for the hot daddy of the week. And
yes.
Mommies out there, if you have any hot daddies or if you have any friends that are hot daddies that you think should be honored here on Modern Mommies, send us your pics and a brief reason why to sgmodernmommies@gmail.com. Do we have him?
We do. I just don't know why we're not screen sharing. I think it might just show.
Well, ladies, if you need a hot daddy,
Here we go. Well, I would like to honor Christopher.
No, I'm just teasing. I was just trying to spend that airtime. No, Kevin is the hot dad this week. Oh, here we go.
Oh, did you just screen share, Chris?
Is it working? Can you see it now?
Oh, you were not using me, right? That's cheating.
Yeah.
No, that really was.
Hey.
That's funny, Kevin.
It's not cheating. Not only.
I remember those Miles days.
Oh, when I used to dress him up and try to send him to commercial auditions. Just kidding.
Y'all match though. Look how cute that is.
We did. I remember that. That was like a thrift store moment where I could, at the thrift store, notice I could get the same size as and I was like, I'm going to do this, and it was good.
Well, it's not just because of the adorable picture, Christopher, and there are so many pictures of you with this great smile and your son with this great smile when he was little, but now as a father of a teenage son, I want to honor you for people give their kids a hard time for being teenagers and being on their video games all the time, but you gave him a blog, and he comes on your shows, and that's awesome.
I make him. I absolutely make him, just so you know. Like, come on. But thank you. I appreciate that. Well, I force him in. So, interesting enough, he has an attention definite. He definitely has a lot of it, needs attention. So one of the things I always do with my son, and thank you, is to try to blow his mind. Like, always try to, blow his mind with something bigger and so, when he would be on The Sims showing me his wife, I'd be like, hey, come on my webcam talk show and tell us about what it's like to be my son. He'd be like, what? I'm like, you have to. Let's do it.
That's really cool.
Kept his attention. Kept his attention. He was just like, but thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah, so we honor you, Christopher Witecki, as this week's Modern Mommy's Hot Daddy of the Week.
Oh, that's so nice. I didn't even say that. Yay. Sorry, Kevin. Maybe next week for you.
Yes.
There we go.
Oh, my goodness.
And again,
yeah, go ahead.
mommies out there and friends of hot daddies, if you know a hot daddy that should be honored on Modern Mommies as the hot daddy of the week, again, that email address to send a pic and brief reason why is sgmodernmommies@gmail.com.
All right.
All right.
Send us one in.
So that concludes our Modern Mommies for this week. We are here live every Wednesday at 6 p.m. Central, and you can join us too live in the chat room at tweettalk.tv. We want to say thank you to Kevin Montalvo. Did I say Montalvo?
That's right. Thank you. I enjoyed being here.
Yeah.
Yay.
Kevin Montalvo, thanks for joining us and sharing your real-life experience with us. It was wonderful to hear that.
Of course.
And thank you, Christopher Wittucky, for rejoining us here on the show. It's
My
great
pleasure.
to have you.
Thank you.
We missed our devil's advocate for sure. I tried, but I don't do it nearly.
I'm not such a hot daddy anymore, is it?
You're good at what you do. And Jennifer, as always, it's been lovely chatting with you.
Yes, you too.
And all right, so again, we're here live every Wednesday at 6 p.m. If you can find us on all over Facebook. Let's see, on the GA Venus Facebook page, where there are a lot. And you can find us also at tweettalk.tv. We've got the blog there and past videos. Do leave comments if there is anything you would like for us to discuss, or if you have any questions that you'd like answers or comments that you'd like to share. Please let us know. We're definitely wanting to speak to the mommies for the mommies, so definitely find us there. And it's been great. Thank you for watching. Live, love, be.